Equilibrium is a movie I didn't even know existed until I stumbled across it on a streaming service. It looked interesting enough, and I was bored, so I gave it a chance. I'm glad I did, because I was hooked from the beginning by the storytelling, visuals, and themes. This is my breakdown of the movie and why I enjoy it so much. The setting. After an apocalyptic Third World War, it is decided that everything possible must be done to prevent a fourth if the human race were to have any chance at survival. One group concluded that emotion is the root cause of all the evil done by mankind, instituted laws banning human feelings, and distributed a drug suppressing those impulses required for all citizens to take. A quasi-religious government and enforcement agency was created to execute this vision, and the city of Liberia is completely under their control. Dissent is not tolerated, and anyone suspected of experiencing emotions is sentenced to death. My analysis. Equilibrium quickly became one of my favorite movies, and that affection has only grown with each rewatch. I enjoy it for many of the same reasons that fascinate me about Babylon 5, which can be summarized by how it is both entertaining and thought-provoking. At first glance, Equilibrium appears to tell the same old story about dystopian tyranny, but I find it does so in a uniquely captivating way. The storytelling and actor portrayals really pull you in, stoking the imagination and getting you to think. Then there is the soundtrack by Klaus Badelt, which is mesmerizingly beautiful and a perfect audio match to the dark and austere visual theme. The elite enforcers of this emotion-banning edict are called clerics, and the movie opens with two of them leading a raid on a rebel cell. John Preston, played by Christian Bale, single-handedly eliminates the final holdout deep in the building by use of a combat method which I will touch on later. Accompanied by his partner Errol Partridge, played by Sean Bean, Preston locates a hidden stash of art and orders it burned. In this way, we learn that any item capable of evoking emotion is also banned and required to be destroyed. This entire time, Partridge does nothing to help, and his entire demeanor suggests that he does not want to be there. Preston soon determines that Partridge is feeling, which makes him a criminal termed a sense offender. He attempts to arrest him, but Partridge refuses to comply, causing Preston to execute him on the spot. An accidental missed dose of the emotion-inhibiting drug shortly afterwards sends Preston on his own journey of emotional enlightenment and exposure of the system's corruption. I'll leave the details of that journey for you to experience for yourself, but there are two scenes in particular which I wish to highlight. The first comes after a raid on another rebel cell when Preston is wandering the halls of their hideout alone, struggling to process his new emotions and reconcile them with his beliefs and actions of the past. He discovers a stash of banned items, and upon indulging his curiosity, he starts up a record player holding a copy of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. When the music plays, it catches him off guard, and the dam holding back his feelings finally bursts. The realization of all the beauty he has destroyed, and all those he has killed for attempting to preserve it, strikes, and he breaks down in tears. As someone who finds music hugely inspirational and can't imagine life without it, this scene strikes hard for me. The effect is greatly enhanced by Christian Bale's acting, the camera work, and even the lighting as the introduction of the symphony plays. Back outside as the building burns, Preston barely has any time to process what just happened to him before having to make a dangerous decision in the next scene I wish to discuss. Any animal lovers watching right now should take warning that this part is especially difficult. We are spared any graphic visuals, but the scene does not hold back with the intensity of the moment, so you may want to use the tabs on the progress bar to skip ahead. Outside the building, officers assisting clerics have located a pen full of dogs. Preston's new partner confesses a lack of understanding as to why sense offenders have a habit of keeping animals, and even questions if they eat them. The officers check for authorization from the clerics, which Preston reluctantly gives as he knows the consequences of not doing so, and they enter the pen to put down the dogs. A puppy manages to run out the gate, and Preston instinctively grabs it. The others tell him to just throw it back in, but he is compelled to hold it up and look into its eyes. Now he is not only feeling for himself, but also empathizing with other creatures. Despite it making the others suspicious, putting him at risk of discovery, he eventually comes up with an excuse to keep the puppy alive and carries it away. Once again, the movie drives home its point by using deep and meaningful connections from the real world. We humans constantly form seemingly irrational bonds with animals, and my heart breaks every time I watch this scene, then explodes when he rescues the one puppy. As I write this script, my own cats are sitting at the window beside me watching the rain, and I know how I would feel if anyone ever sought to harm them. One other element which I feel proves the careful artistry which went into creating this movie is the combat method I mentioned earlier. It is called the Katas, and is a form of martial arts specially invented for the film. It is explained that by studying hundreds of gun battles, researchers discovered a reliable pattern to the positions of the combatants and lines of fire. By mastering the Katas through intense training, A gunman learns where to stand and how to move without getting hit and fire back without missing, all without having to think about it in the moment. Even though this concept almost certainly would not work in reality, it carries just enough logic for it to be intriguing and represents a manner of respect for the audience. Fights of all kinds may appear chaotic, but there are patterns generated both by necessity and human nature which martial artists have analyzed and sought to exploit for millennia. Is it not possible, however remote, that the same techniques can be applied to gun battles by people dedicated enough to figure them out? Regardless of the realism aspect, I'm just happy that an explanation of any kind was given for Preston's incredible feats rather than simply expecting the audience to go along with it. That it was such a well thought out and somewhat plausible explanation is a nice bonus. Conclusion. Do our feelings tend to get away from us and cause problems? Yes. Only a fool would dispute that fact. But they are also what makes life worth living, and they are an inescapable part of what makes us human. There are many lessons to be learned from this movie, and with such a complex subject, it's likely not all of them were intended by the creators, who no doubt learned a few things about themselves as well. I find there are two things which everyone should get from it. The world's problems are not solved by denying what makes us human, and tyranny is never far from even the purest of intentions.
I've owned in my dreams. I've spread my dreams under your feet. Tread softly, because you tread on my dreams.